Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Hello and Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf, Nazir Chav Beis. We are right on top, Toshma. Right in the midst of a question, which we presented yesterday. An Isha, a married woman, makes a neder. She commits to Nazirus. Her husband has the ability to interfere, to cancel, to do hafara on that commitment. How does that hafara work? One option, mi'akar akar, lashon akira. It uproots it entirely, retroactively. There was never any Nazirus. The other option is megas gayes. He cuts it off. He terminates it going forward. Mikano lahaba. Now what's the nafkamina? So the Gemara yesterday presented a nafkamina as follows. Rachel, a married woman, makes a commitment to be a Nazir. She's Mekabel Nazirus, and her friend Leah overhears that, and she follows suit, she emulates, she copies. Va'ani, me too. She's in effect latching on to Rachel's commitment. Rachel's husband comes along and does hafara. If it uproots it entirely, it is as though it never happened, in which case there's nothing to latch onto. Leah's Nazirus falls by the wayside as well. Whereas Megas Gaius, which means that there is no retroactive annulment, it's just going forward. It's just a bittul mekana lahaba. If that is the right pshat, then although Rachel's Nazirus stops cold right here, but Leah, who latched onto her Nazirus while it was active, prior to the hafara, that Nazirus can now continue. And that Nazirus is still active. So which way is it? Me'akar akar, it's a retroactive cancellation, or megas gayes, it cuts it, terminates it going forward. Tashma, come and listen to this raya. Ha'isha shenadra b'nazir, a married woman accepted Nazirus, v'nitmis, and she became tummy, which typically necessitates the whole, tahara process, 7 days, tiglachas, karbanos, asham, behema, chata sa'if, oila sa'if. And she, in fact, designated those karbanis. Va'achar kach hefer lebala. After which her husband came along and did hafara. Mevia chata sa'if. She'll still bring the chatas bird. Ve'ena mevia oila sa'if, but no oila bird. Why does she bring a chatas and not an oila? Visa gadaitach baal megas gayes. Now, if we assume that the husband's hafara only affects her neder going forward, but past is past, whatever she did was actually Nazirus, in that case, she was a Nazir who became Tami. Taisi nami oila sa'if. She shall bring even an oila sa'if. And Asham, Taisis adds. Velamai, so what are you trying to prove from here? Me'akar akar. It uproots it l'mafreya. So there was never Nazirus, and there was never Nazirus betuma, then let her be pater entirely. Chata sa'if nami loy taisi, she shouldn't bring anything. You're right. Achinami, you're 100% right. She was never a Nazir. She has no chiv karban, but chata sa'if she brings, because she deprived herself. We discussed this yesterday, and that in itself is sufficient grounds, sufficient basis to trigger an oila sa'if, which doesn't need to have a proper, 100% bona fide, established chiyuv. We find that even a suffix chiyuv can generate a chiyuv of chata sa'if by a suffix leida. We had this yesterday, we had this in the Dharam. V'hamani, Rabbi Lezer HaKapiri, this is in line with the Rabbi Lezer Shita, who considers a nazir to be a chaytei, which necessitates a carbon. So even though technically she wasn't, halachically a nazir, but she experienced this deprivation, which she imposed on herself. It's like a chiv nazirus, and therefore a chata sa'if shall bring. The Sani Rabbi Lezer HaKappa Baribi, the great one, Omer, he said like this: Mal tamad leimer masha chata lenefesh. The pasuk describes a nazir, describes him as a chayte. Why? In what way did he sin? Because he deprived himself. He withheld from wine. That's why he's called a sinner. Hashem does not want us to deprive ourselves unnecessarily. We can learn by way of a kavachimer. Since even this fellow, all he did was deprive himself of one item, wine. Hashem considers him a sinner. Hamitzar atzim kol davar, certainly one who applies a broader deprivation to himself, a fast, etc. Alachas kama v'kama, certainly it's not desired, it's not recommended. And that's the answer to our question. Chatas ha'if shall still bring, even though there was hafara. Tashma, let's proceed with another raya from a brisa, which clearly says that the hafara method works by way of megas gayis. So perhaps the earlier pshat in the previous brisa, that it can be me'akar akar, that's according to Lazar HaKapar. That even if there was no Nazirus ever, it was ne'akar, but chatas ha'if you can still bring it because of the tsar, because of the chet. That works according to him, but according to Chachamim, there is no such concept. And the following brisa, says Taisus, is in fact reflective of Shitas Rabbanim. They will hold megas gayis. Tashma desani behed. We have a clear brisa which indicates that the hafara only works mikan ulahabo. Ho'isha shenadr benazir. An isha accepted Nazirus. Vishamas chaverta. Her friend overhears. She gets inspired. She follows suit. V'amar, she says, Vani, me too. Uba bala shel rishayna, husband of Rachel, the first isha comes along. Vehefila, and does the hafara, undoes the Nazirus. What happens? He muteras. Rachel is now muter. V'chaverta asura, but Leah's Nazirus remains intact. What is that a raya to? Clear raya that Shema mino Baal megas gayis. The husband's hafara only affects it going forward in terms of Rachel's further Nazirus. But Leah, who latched onto Rachel's Nazirus at a point where it was still active, that commitment stands. Concludes the brisa. Reb Shimon Omer. There's one more point here that we have to bring out. Im amr la harini k'maisach. The halacha that we just mentioned applies when Leah said V'ani. Me too. So since at that point Rachel's Nazirus was active, that activates Leah's Nazirus as well. But let's say Leah didn't simply say V'ani. She said, Hareini k'moisech. I'm like you. I'm in the same boat as you. When you're a Nazir, I am. If you're not, I'm not. In this case, shtein mutaris. When the husband comes and interferes with Rachel's and nullifies her Nazirus, even if it's going forward. Since Leah's Nazirus is totally dependent upon Rachel being an active Nazira, in this case she's no longer a Nazira, Leah is no longer either. Mazutra Beid Rav Mori Amar. Here comes an interesting parallel, interesting equation. Says Mazutra, hi, this din that we just learned, that even when Rachel's Nazirus gets cancelled, in the first case of the brisa, and Rachel's Nazirus has hafara, Leah's will still stand. Hainu Durami Barchama would appear to provide clarity. It will help us resolve a question posed by Rami Barchama back in Maseches Nedarim. The boy Rami Barchama, he presented the following shayla. We know that in order to make a neder, you have to present a neder. You have to source the neder, nedavar hanadar. It has to be based on another isser which is man-made. For instance, I can say this piece of meat will have an isser to me, like a carbon. Carbon is something which is man-made. So what if a fellow says, Harei alai kibasar zevach shlamim? He has a piece of meat standing there, and he says, I want this to be considered like the basar, the flesh of a shlamim carbon. And we're speaking that the shlamim was not yet, committed, it fulfilled, it wasn't yet completed. It was still before Zerika. In which case, it is still considered Isser. Nobody can partake in that carbon before Zerika. It's still Isser, and into Davar another was brought about by a man-made Hegdish. So, I'm equating this item here, fruit, bread, meat, which is now mutter, and equating it, I'm latching it on to a basar zivchei shlamim prior to Zrika, and I want to make this like that. So what's the question? Mao, what's the halach? How do we treat this? Ki matvis inish, when a person connects, b'ikara matvis, is he latching onto the basar shlamim the way it is before Zrika? In which case it's asr, it's considered davar hanadar, and can provide basis for further nedarim. So the neder is effective. Oidilma bitsanana, lashon tzoinin, cooling off. The end, when the pot cools off. Bitsanana matvis. He's going to be connecting it to the basar shlamim the way it is later. Once it arrived at its final destination, once its process is fully completed, meaning after Zrika. Problem is, after Zrika, it's no longer asur. It's no longer called davar hanadar, and cannot be used as a source for further nedar. So that was Rabbi Chama's question. And perhaps, says Majotra, perhaps our sugi, our brisa can provide clarity, because here as well, we have Rachel who made her Naziris. And Rachel is latching onto her Naziris. Fact is, her husband came along, and Rachel's husband came and was made for Rachel's Naziris. So ultimately, her Naziris did not hold water, did not carry through, was not successful. Still, the Brisa tells us, Megas guidance. It only affects it going forward, going further. But in retrospect, the Naziris of Rachel was active, was valid, and enabled Leah. It facilitated Leah's Naziris. Question is, who says? Maybe when Leah used Rachel's Naziris as a catalyst, as a source, as basis for her Naziris, she meant comprehensively. I want to latch onto Leah's Naziris, as it plays out. But Sanana Matvis, in terms of its, full picture. And ultimately it didn't play out. Her husband came and took it away. So since we see in our brisa that we don't say that, we don't look at the end game. B'ikara matvis, the way it is now. Basher Husham, right now it's active. It allows for further nadarim and further nazirus to draw from it. The same in the case of the basar shlamim. We look at it the way it's now, and right now it's davar another. Is that a good equation? Says the Gemara, perhaps not. There's room for distinction between the two cases. Midami, how do you compare? In the case of Rami Bar Chama with the Shlamim, perhaps when he was matvis in the basar, he had long-term developments in mind. I'm connecting, I'm relating to it, I'm identifying with the basar of Shlamim as per its final destination. After Zrika. And post Zrika is not a davar another. Why would I say that he had that in mind? Says the Gemara, Kivin the Amar, Harei like basar of Shlamim, Afagav, Tla'achash Nizak Dame, Motzi Achale B'chutz, because even if he's looking at the full picture, it makes sense that he was still identifying with it and latching onto it. Because even after Zrika, you could still eat it, even though you can eat it outside the Migdash. You could eat the Shlamim outside, throughout the city in Yerushalayim. But it still identifies as Kachim. And it's worthy of latching on to Migdash Kaddish. It's still Kaddish. So, it lends the reason that perhaps that's what he was referring to. I'm making this like the basar of Shlamim, the way it is eventually, in its final product, its final form. After Zrik. Problem is, it's no longer davar another, so it won't trigger, it won't allow me to source my neder and base my neder in that. But you can't be gerayah from the isha from neder. You know why? Because over here you can't. Put it this way, you have more reason to think that the isha, in this case her name is Leah, she did not have in mind the ultimate destination of Rachel's Naziris, because Isa Kedaitak B'tzana Kamatvis, because if in fact she had in mind the end game, it turns out that her husband did a full hafara. And why would she want to relate to the Nazirus after the hafara when it's no longer in existence? She's trying to make herself a Nazir. She's trying to latch onto some Nazirus. She knows full and well that if Rachel's husband comes along, the nether is no longer in existence. So why would she? Why would she relate to that later stage of that nether? So here there's good reason to believe that Leah was simply focusing on the present status of Rachel's nether, which provides basis for her nether, irrespective of what's going to happen with Rachel's nether later on. She's looking at it the way it's now. I'm copying it, I'm latching onto it, and that's why she's a Nazirah. Despite the fact that Rachel's Nazirus eventually fell by the wayside, as opposed to the Basar Shlamim. He still relates to it as Basar Shlamim even after Zrika. It's less Kedusha, it's low carbon, you get a mitzvah for eating it. So perhaps that's what he had in mind. I want this to be like that Basar, even after Zrika. But that won't make a nether, because after Zrika it's no longer Davar another. So we're not sure regarding that case. And our case will not provide a precedent. There's another version of this Gemara. Yeah, we don't hold by this distinction. The two cases are equatable, in which case we have a good ride from our Gemara to Ram Bar Chama's case. The person focuses as is, the way it is now, just like by Leah. She draws from Rachel's Nazirus because right now it's active. It provides basis for her own Nazirus, likewise in the case of the Shlomim. When I say this is like the Basar Shlomim, which is currently before Zrika, I'm latching onto it as is, and it provides basis and fodder for my further nether. Continues the Gemara. So let's assume that we go with the idea of Ikara Kamatvis. We bring that raya from our Gemara that Leah can use Rachel as Nazirus as a catalyst for her own Nazirus, despite the fact later on Rachel's Nazirus disintegrates. So even if that's the case, what happens in the following case? Amrullah Harein Nazira bi'ikvayich mahu. Leah tells Rachel, I want to be a Nazira bi'ikvayich, in your heels. That can have two connotations, as the Tosfos says. Bi'ikvayich can mean like b'seifeich, whatever happens to you eventually, like the pasuk in Bereshis Gimel, va'ata tushufenu okev, like a heel on the bottom of the person's body. So whatever happens to you happens to me. If your Nazirus survives your husband's scrutiny, I'm with you. If it fails, if it falls apart, I go along with you. Basically, we're on the same track. We're interdependent. That's one way to look at it. Or b'ikvayich can mean like Ekev Asher Shama Avram B'Koili. Because you're becoming a Nazir, I am too. And even if your husband comes and takes away yours, I want to still be a Nazir. Based on the idea of Baal Megaz Gai, as we mentioned before. So B'ikvayich can have two connotations. It's dependent on your success, or you're spurring me, you're inspiring me, but it's not necessarily dependent upon your success, on the success of your Nazirus. Amr la Harein Nazira B'ikvayich Ma'u. How do we treat this? Harein B'ikvayich B'kula Milsa. I'm totally dependent on yours. Vishaya, and when yours goes, mine goes. Or because of yours, I'm also doing it. And even if the husband comes along, does afara, I'm still asr. I'm relating to your Nazirus. I'm relating to the phase of your Nazirus, which precedes your husband's interference. I'm using that to create my nether. And even if yours disappears, I still stand. So which way is it? What does b'ikvayich mean? Tashma, here comes a raya. From now on, Mishnah. a wife committed, accepted Nazirus. Visham Bala V'amar Vani, husband comes along and says, me too, Vani. Eino Yachal Hafar. He cannot do Hafara. He can no longer interfere with his wife's commitment. Now the Gemara at this point figures that even though he just said the word Vani, we treat it as though he said Be'ikvayich. I'm with you entirely. My success is dependent on the success of your neder, of your Nazirus. And the Tosfos explains, although typically by strangers Vani doesn't have the same meaning, right? Unless he says Be'ikvayich, then perhaps we're suggesting that it is success dependent. Well, typically the word Vani doesn't mean more than just me too. Whatever you are right now, I'm following. But by a husband, the word Vani means Be'ikvayich. Why? Because, as the Tosfos says, it's biyadai lahater. He can do it. It's within his ability to be mater his wife's neder. He knows it's a card that he has in his pocket. He has that up his sleeve. So when he says, me too, what he means to say is, well, I'm going to, consider your Nazirus, and if I decide to confirm your Nazirus, I'm going to go along with you. So it's as though we treat it as though he said Be'ikvayich. And what does the Mishnah say? Eino Yachal Hafar. He cannot do the Hafara. Why? Because if in fact he will nullify his wife's neder, what's going to happen? His own neder, his own Nazirus will become batal. Right? Again, if our understanding, our interpretation of the word Vani by a husband is like Be'ikvayich, and in fact Be'ikvayich means Be'kula Milsa, like the first, shot, it totally depends on your success. It's the final product that I want to follow. So if eventually he is Mefer and her Nazirus disappears, likewise, right, if her Nazirus disappears, his will as well. His Nazirus, which is totally dependent on the success of hers. That he can't do because a person cannot bring about a failure to his neder. He can't bring about destruction of his neder. Lo yachal dvari. That's why the Mishnah says Eino Yachal Hafar. So you have a right from here that Be'ikvayich means my commitments totally depend on your Nazirus being successful. Not just the way it is now, the way it's successful for all time. Because if we were to say that the Lashon Be'ikvayich just means, because you're doing it, I'm also doing it. But my commitment is not, pending your success. He's just latching on to the way it is now, in its early phase. Likewise, in this case, the husband's just saying, look, you are a Nazir now. At least right now, you're still a Nazir. If I get around to dismantling your Nazirus, and I'm going to follow suit, I'm latching on to that. So if that's the case, let him go. If he decides to do hafara, let him take care of her neder, dismantle that. But like him today and have his stand. He's not dependent upon the success of her neder. Apparently, the understanding, the interpretation of the word Be'ikvayich is in fact a more comprehensive interpretation. That explains why he can't do the hafara, because it's going to dismantle his own neder. But in a non-husband-wife situation, in a case where Rachel, a married woman, committed to Nazirus, and Leah, her friend, followed suit, using the word Be'ikvayich, he nami muteras. Once Rachel's Nazirus gets dismantled by her husband, that ricochets to Leah as well, and she's mutter. Is that a raya? Loi, says the Gemara, no. Loi lam bi'ikara kamatvis. Let's go back to our Mishnah. In the case of the husband copying his wife. Even though we consider it bi'ikvayach perhaps means in its current phase. Whatever you're doing now, I'm latching on to that. Question, why can't the husband be made for hers and have his own stand? The problem is a totally different issue. Hakama is the issue. Because when he responds to her Naziris with the word Vani, you know what he's doing? It is tantamount to Hakama. He's confirming. He's giving her a big check mark. It's as though he's saying, great. Good deed, good work. So once it's a Hakama, he can't go and take that away. So Hakama is like making a nether. If he shall go to the Chacham and remove the Hakama, regret the Hakama, okay. Once he gets it out of the way, Matzi Mefer, that enables his Hafara. But otherwise lie, because he was making it. So it has nothing to do with our question of Be'ikvich. The side issue. The word Vani is tantamount to Hakama, which puts a block wall in front of his ability to interfere with her nether further. Okay. Hareni Nazir. Vat. Let's go back to the Mishnah. Man says, I'm a Nazir, and he presents the same to his wife. Amen, she confirms, Amen. Mever Shalom, Shalom. If he chooses, he can do Afar to hers and have his own stand. V'raminu, listen to this kash from a brisa, which seems to say that husband and wife's nazirs are totally dependent on each other. You can't have one without the other. Haredi nazir v'at v'amra amin. Shnei masur, they're both asur. And he can't, says Taishis, he can't even do hafara because the brisa holds Baal mi akar akar. It's a total uprooting of the entire nether retroactively, in which case it's going to affect his nether as well, because his nethers depend on hers. So there's no way out. But if he did not get her to cooperate, Shnei mutar, they're both mutar. So she didn't go along with this plan. He's not either committed. You know why? Because he depended on his nether on hers. It was a package deal. It was a husband and wife project. How does that fit with our Mishnah, which says you can take away hers and keep yours? Rabbi Yehuda, you're right. Let's modify the brisa. Tani, learn it like this: Mefer Shalom, Shalom Kayim. Even when it's a husband-wife project, they're not interdependent. He can take away hers and leave his. Abaya Amar no afilu tema kediktani. Let's leave things the way they are. And the answer to your kasha would be like this: in the brisa, kigoyin deka Amar lo haredi nazar. Vat. And the brisa, in fact, he did link them together. He said, look, I'm a Nazir and you too. In a calm voice, not in a question mark form. I'm a Nazir and you. And she says, sure, amen. You know why they're interdependent? Because he depended his nether on her. He linked his and hers together. So it's either both or none. But in Al Mishnah, there was a question mark inserted. Was speaking that he declared himself Nazir, and he proceeded with a question. Vat? You too? Do you have interest in joining me? So even if she responded positively, she joined. They're two separate commitments. Right? He said, I'm a Nazir. Vat mai? What about you? Are you interested in joining? And she responded, yes. He wasn't Taylor himself and her. That explains the Mishnah. He can in fact turn around and take care of hers, dismantle hers, and leave his own intact. Okay, so let's recap today's daf. We started with a Shaila Baal when he's Mefer, the nether of his wife. For instance, the Naziris of his wife. Is it a retroactive uprooting, me'akar akar, or is it going forward, megas gayas? In the last raya we have a brisa beferish which says megas gayas, and in fact when Rachel's Naziris disappears, Leah's Naziris can still stand, even though it was latched onto Rachel, because at the time of her latching, Rachel's was still active. So even though there was a hafara, the hafara does not affect it retroactively. We wanted to compare it to the case of the Shlomim, either yes or not, depending on the girsa. We had a shaila with the lashon bi'ikvayich. We came out inconclusive, and according to Abaye, in a husband-wife project, it depends how it was presented. They were linked together, then in fact they depend on each other. But if it was, I'm Nazir, do you want to join? And she agrees, well, it is a joint project, but isn't so linked. So in fact, he can go ahead and do afara to hers, and his Naziris will still stand. Hatzlacha Rabbi to all of you, and B'suras Tevis, a good gebencht Yor, Aksivach Simateva.